And good morning. Happy August 29th, 2020. If you can hear me, let me know over in the comments. I am watching the comments, and I'm not 100% sure if you can hear me. So let me know. When you haven't live streamed in a while, just got to make sure that everything is working. So hit that like button if you can hear me. Everybody's filtering in this morning. Looks like everybody can hear me. So if you've been talking with me over the last week, you'll know that last weekend I took a little tumble off of a ladder from about 5 feet in the air. I thought I was still 20 years old. Turns out I am not still 20 years old. But yeah, it was definitely interesting, and it was like the ladder or a carpenter bee, like. And are you allergic to bees with no EpiPen around? So it's like, thought I was just going to get away and ended up falling. And the only thing I could think was, don't hit your head, don't hit your head, don't hit your head, right? So then you like land with your hand, and it was a whole weird thing. All you older guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You older folks, you know that falling's not the same as it was 20 years ago. But yeah, I'm finally not sore and getting back in. And it just physically really slowed me down, shook me up a little bit. But if that's the worst thing that happens, things are great. But hi to all our friends down in the southern states of the United States that may have been impacted by the storms. Hopefully everybody's okay. I've seen some things on Facebook about people going down to help provide relief. So if there's anything that we can do as far as technical support or things like that, we'd be happy to help at no charge. So if you were affected by those storms and you are a WISP or a service provider and you have customers and you need help, let us know. So we'd be more than happy to help. What else? This morning, we had to be at the DMV 7:30 a.m. Central. So my son could renew his driving permit. He is about 30 days away from getting his driver's license. So I got to call the insurance man on Monday, make sure we're all lined up for that. That's exciting. So, all right, let's, fast you can think. Yeah, there's a lot of things in that like 5 seconds from where you're going from the ladder to the ground. Like your world is in like slow motion. Wife is on the deck like, oh my God, are you okay? And then like your world's like slow motion, and then it's just, so many things go through your mind. It's weird how that works. So did you all get a chance to see any of my social media or the video on the UniFi Doorbell? What do you all think about this UniFi Doorbell? I want to talk about it a little bit. Go ahead and put your thoughts about that UniFi Doorbell over in the comments, and we will get to those. I do want to thank MeshForce. So MeshForce sent me this whole home mesh Wi-Fi system. So if you are familiar with Wi-Fi mesh systems, such as the Amplify, the Orbi, the Google, the whatever, name a system, right? What I'm going to do with this, we're going to open this. I am going to film a video on the introduction, how to set it up, all that good stuff. But then there are some people who live in town who have the fiber internet, and where the fiber company terminated the fiber, so they're using the combo modem, router, firewall, whatever. That's a whole other conversation, right? About how firewalls and routers really are separate things, but we cram them into the same box. But they're running that, and so what we are going to do is I'm actually going to give them this device after I do the video on it at no charge. I would never charge anybody for any device that I'm given. So I'm going to give this to them at no charge to see if they can get the Wi-Fi at their house working the way they want, and then we're going to have some real world usage on this, and I'm dropping my knife everywhere. And it'll be nice for MeshForce to get some real feedback, because they send. The thing about this is it's kind of like software development too, right? So like they send this to me And yeah, I know where to push, but because, you know, I'm not going to use this the way that a non-technical, non-reviewer is going to use it, right? So it's good for them to have that feedback about how this is really going to be used outside of my lab. So we're going to get them some real statistics, and then those folks will not have to buy, they will not have to buy an extra router. They already bought a Wi-Fi extender, and you all know how I feel about Wi-Fi extenders. I'm not a huge fan. So what is in the MeshForce box? You get a nice quick start guide. I love it how all the quick start guides now are like this. Each page is a step, and it's super duper easy. So there's 5 steps on that side and some more steps on that side. So the one thing that I did find that was interesting about this, and we'll see if this is always going to be the case, but it appears that you have to use an app to set this up. So if that's true, and we'll see that in the video, if you have to use an app to set this up, I don't know. I think the device will be limited in the things that you can do, because they can only make the UI so usable through a mobile device. All right, so step 1, 2, and 3, register, download, need help. And then here is one of the mesh points. Oh, this is nice. So here's one of the mesh points for this system. And it looks like that's weird. So it must go like this, which is weird, right? Because MeshForce is, you can read it when it's like this. But then when I turn it around, all of the FCC information, all of the other information is upside down. But I've got to assume that this is the orientation that they want you to have this plugged in. So if you plug this into the bottom of a wall socket, you know, you've got a dual wall socket. If you plug this into the bottom, you're going to lose both receptacles, much like some of the other devices we've looked at. If you plug it into the top, it'll be okay. It'll look like one of those smell good things that you plug in. And then I thought this was kind of neat, kind of interesting. On the bottom it looks like we can do Ethernet backhaul with these. So if you've got Ethernet, you can plug this in, and it can apparently communicate with the router. So with this, the mesh point that they gave me is different than the one that they gave Cajoling Technologies. It was a different color, maybe even a different model. So this is actually these endpoints, and they both have, this is the second one. So there are 2 mesh points in this box. They're calling this the dot, the MeshForce dot. These are made in China. MeshForce is trying to really break into the market. That's why they reached out, and I thought, you know what, I will give it a shot. You know, the thing is that these networking providers, they have a few good years, they build a loyal following, and then things start falling apart. So we can't just not evaluate gear, because sometimes the gear that's been out there for a while is not going to work for what we want to do. Now these are the US plug versions, so you get 2 of these. You get 2 of the dots. Like I said, I thought it was funny. You know, that's got to be the orientation. That's the only thing I can think of that. And then here's the router itself. And Joe over at Cajoling said, man, this router's light. When he grabbed it, he said, this thing is like, and he's right. This thing, I'll bet you this thing weighs 1/4 pound. I'll bet you this thing comes in at about 4 ounces. So, you know, for my friends in the UK, that's a Royale with cheese. But here's the actual MeshForce box itself. It's got an LED ring around the top. It's got that same, they've got this same pattern here on the device on the top of this that they do of the dots. So the look and feel is consistent. It is very much plastic. Very much plastic. Each of the devices, let's see, does the SSID, so they are definitely prepared, because on the propaganda on the bottom of both of these, it has the same SSID and the same password. Now what would be interesting is I didn't hear what the password was, and if Joe from Cajoling Technologies is out in the live stream, is the default password for your mesh Wi-Fi system MORE 7858. So it's MORE 7858. If it is, and they're using the same default password for everybody, that's going to be interesting. If those of you who are in California now, probably, I don't know if it applies to SSIDs, but definitely admin usernames and passwords are supposed to be different. Hey, James coming in from St. Louis. James works with me on Grandstream and Free PBX and actually all things PBXs. So good morning, James. But yeah, this thing is super duper light, and it does have the screw holes, so you can mount this thing. And I want to stop and take a second. You still see the Lenovo logo. I do want to thank Lenovo for providing this machine we're live streaming from. I have been lining up guests, and COVID, the big C word, kind of threw a wrench in a lot of things. And I was actually at Guitar Center yesterday, and they said that like all of their microphones, when everybody was like stay at home, like everybody tried to start a podcast and all that. So I'm going to let that, we had talked about before that, starting the podcast, but I've got some guests lined up, and we're actually going to start doing the recording. So that's going to be kind of nice. Yeah, I love Lenovo products. The ThinkPads those are great devices. So back to this real quick. So on the back of this device, we've got power, we've got reset, we've got an internet, and then we've got a LAN. So this says WAN/LAN. So apparently you can use it as a second LAN port. I don't know, but this port is definitely right here, right there, dedicated for LAN. So that's interesting. But yeah, this thing, literally 4 ounces, if that. I mean, this thing is like, I can't believe how light this is. But electronics, everything is getting smarter, faster, all that. It doesn't take a whole lot. So I am going to spend some time later tonight. Unboxes, I'm kind of lukewarm on those these days. There's lots of people doing unboxing. I'd rather just actually get to a real usage video and get some real thoughts. So I'm going to do that tonight so that I can deliver this so those folks can test it and see if they can get Wi-Fi out in the garage and other parts of the house. So it's interesting. So this is supposed to have true mesh technology with 2 dots. This is supposed to cover 4,000 square feet. So we'll have to see if we really get 4,000 square feet of usage out of this. It says 5+ rooms, and of course everything is managed on mobile, and you can have up to 6 dots on this system. So I want to thank MeshForce once again for sending this out. Unky Joe's on here. Unky Joe, howdy Joe. Did MeshForce get a hold of you? So what'll happen a lot of times is that they will go out and they will find a lot of us that are in the same niche and have the same type of subscriber count and things like that, and they will solicit all of us with the products. Some of us say yes, some of us say no. I'm a fool for technology, so I definitely usually say yes if they provide a second unit for me to give away, and I always let them know that it's going to take me a little while to get the video out, and they all seem to be pretty cool with that. Yeah, Alonzo, check it out and see. For those of you who saw that I did have a UniFi LTE, where we live, the cell phone service is garbage. We literally have to walk all the way to the end of the driveway out by the main road to get good cell phone service. So I actually packaged that up and shipped that over to Tom Lawrence yesterday. So Tom, I sent him the tracking number. He'll have it early next week, and so I'm sure Tom will be able to do the review on that justice, whereas for me, it would not be good. The only video I could really put out about that is, look, you have to have good cell service for this thing to work, right? So I'd rather just not do a video, since it's going to be a bad experience, but just know that it doesn't work if you don't have good cell phone coverage. It's going to be a poor experience for you. So that's really my take on that. I'd also like to thank my son for buying me Starbucks this morning. So, all right. So, yeah, Unky Joe, I'm kind of jealous of that server that Lenovo sent you. Now, they did send me this rig that we are live streaming on this morning, and I am eternally grateful for that. But I do love servers too. Just saying, Bob, from Lenovo. If you heard that, I love servers. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right. So the next thing, I had another company reach out to me, and these boxes are pretty nondescript. And off the top of my head, this is horrible of me, I cannot remember the name of the company. It'll probably be on these, but they sent me a couple PoE switches, and I'm actually gonna I am actually going to, it's Aumox, AUMOX is the name of the company. And they just have these really nice, small, little PoE switches. And, you know, they said, dude, would you like to take a look? And I'm like, yeah, let me see what the 5 and 8 port. So get this, right? So this is how the whole conversation started. So I start looking, which one is this? This is the 5 port. I'm going to show you both of these. But we're talking, and I'm like, ooh, you know, you've got an 8-port PoE switch. Is it rack mountable? And they say, yes, absolutely, it is rack mountable. I'm like, oh, yeah, can I get one with the rack mount kit? Now, I'm working on a video with Grandstream for some Grandstream products, or I'm evolving the idea, getting ready to film. Because if you have a YouTube channel, sometimes, and this is true of anything, you know, in life, is this that first step, getting started, is always the hardest thing. So I've got all these great ideas, and sometimes putting the paper, you know, the pen to the paper is easier than, like, so you've got this idea and you're like, oh, are people going to like this? Or are people going to hate it? You know, and just as a person, you know, you hate it when people hate stuff. So sometimes it's difficult to get the motivation to get started on that, but I am going to do that. So I'm like, okay, cool. Send me this 8-port rack mountable switch. Right? And, you know, so it shows up, and the box is like small and light. And I'm like, okay. So in the box for the 8-port switch, this is Aumox, AUMOX. So thank you to Aumox for sending me the switches. Jacob Johnson, I have plans for those Dell servers. They are actually going to get shipped out to Utah to a data center that a friend of mine owns. He's got 10 gig internet. He's got 10 gig internet coming in there, and so we're going to ship a server out there because we're going to move our web hosting. But so here's what I want to talk to you about. So I'm excited to get this 8-port PoE switch. One of the things that really excites me about gear is when they don't have to use the external power supply, when they can build the just using a standard power cable, right? So I don't have power bricks all over. So when I got this and I saw that on the back, I was like, horribly focused there. But, you know, we got just a standard power input. You've got a grounding lug there. I was super duper excited about this. And then I was like, okay, how are we going to put this in the rack? So I'm like, I look in the box and I don't see any rack ears. Because you'll notice this is not anywhere close to being, you know, 19. We'd have to have probably 2 of these, right? But it's 8-port PoE. It is unmanaged. So it is something like where I would have a port dedicated to VoIP, and I would hang this off the VoIP, excuse me, the VoIP port, and power all of my VoIP phones, which is what I'm going to do with this. So I email them and I'm like, hey, did you forget to send the rack ears for this 8-port switch? And they write me back and they say, no. The rack ears are in the package. So I go back and I look, because when I looked at the package, I saw these screws washers was what it was exposed. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the rack ears for that 8-port switch. So I guess if I have a mini rack that sits on top of my desk, I guess these are going to work fine, but these are definitely not going to work for a 19-inch rack, right? So I just thought that was kind of funny. So I'll just have to change my video that I'm going to use these in. I'm going to do a full video on these. There's not going to be much to it because they are unmanaged, but sometimes you just need PoE. Well, that's not good. Sometimes you just need PoE, and it'd be nice to have something like this that you just plug in. It's nice and inexpensive. I think this switch, when I looked, it was like $40, $45. Don't quote me on that. Hold on, let me fire up the old web browser here. And let me get over to Amazon, because, Amazon owns the world at this point. And they're doing all kinds of stuff. 8-port PoE. All right, so I was wrong. I was wrong on the price. Sorry. But here is, that's not it. Okay, so here's this 8-port switch. It's only $60, and you can save another 8%. And I do have, if you're looking for these, don't order yet. Get a hold of me. I do have a coupon code that they provided where you can save additional money off the price on Amazon. So if you're interested in just an unmanaged PoE switch, which sometimes it's beautiful to have these, just give me a few days or email me and I'll give you the coupon code. And but I mean, $59.99. I've got the 5-port as well. So if we go into this 8-port, we should be able to select the 5-port. So it's a 5-port PoE, 78 watt, and is only $33.99. Free returns, but I mean, it's got 2,351 ratings. It's got 5 out of 5. I mean, let me just talk about it. I mean, there's no configuration to it. If this thing had less than like 4 stars, I would be like, so if I go over to the 8-port, so I mean, it's really hard to mess up just a PoE switch unless this thing is just a train wreck and just doesn't switch. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I would expect this thing to get pretty good ratings. And it's certainly in the right price point for somebody who just needs some PoE. So video on that coming. And so once again, thank you to Aumox for the switches. So I'm just throwing stuff everywhere this morning. That's how it goes. Now, I know for the last year you've seen me with this ugly, well, it's not really ugly, but the lighting in here is not real great. But this week it is on my list to finally, after having been moved in for over a year, get my office situated so I can sit in here and stop being in front of the clothes rack and all that stuff. So that's coming. That's something that I'm going to work on, because this room, which is my actual office, just gives me a lot more flexibility. And I think everybody would like to see the rows and rows and rows and rows of tech stuff. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to turn this around, or I've got several things. So my dad back in the day found a couple rattlesnake rattlers while he was mushroom hunting. And I mean, rattlesnakes are no longer like in our area. This was like years and years ago. You got to go down to southern Illinois for those. And, so my mom's got those. So I'm going to like put those in a shadow box. And he also have found some like real Indian arrowheads. So I wanted to put those in a shadow box. And I thought, why don't we put some shadow boxes up here? They'll let the good times roll sign up here and just have a fun little background. But, yeah, so Unky Joe or anybody listening, anytime that you have any problems with voice over IP, Grandstream, free PBX, clearly IP, you name one. James and I have been working with a manufacturer, so James handles all the free PBX stuff for us, and he's awesome. I handled Grandstream. We also got involved with another vendor because we were worried about any hijinks that may happen with the Asterisk license. So we got involved with a vendor who makes an actual rack mount PBX appliance. That FreeSwitch is the underlying phone software that's running instead of Asterisk. And we've been working with them, trying to work with them. Now they are in China. We've been working with them, telling them things that we need. So we are going to hook that back up. We also have a Grandstream 6300 series that we're going to hook up. I can't do full videos on it because the firmware is changing rapidly on that. But we're going to show you the 6200 series with our remote work options that James and I have come up with. And then we're going to show you the 6300 series. The 6300 series, the remote work, I believe, will be a paid application because it's hosted by Grandstream. But the way that James and I do it, you don't have to pay for it. You buy the hardware. So there'll be some compare and contrast on that. But Tavares, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You know, I think a company logo back here would be fantastic. And Jacob, yes, I still do want that rack. You should shoot me an email, Jacob, just to let me know how things are going. So Amy asks, any recommendation on a Wi-Fi 6 router? So at this point, the only Wi-Fi 6 router that I have tested is the Amplify Alien that Ubiquiti sent me. And I actually loaned it to a friend of mine, and he was like, so the mesh kit that they sent me, MSRP is $6.99. And so he was like, he saw that, he looked it up, and he's like, dude, I don't want to. And I'm like, look, they sent this to me for free. You know, I'm not going to sell it. I can't sell it. Like, just use it. You know, otherwise it's just going to sit on the shelf for now because I swap my stuff out so much. My wife did notice that the Wi-Fi 6 was missing and asked why the 6 was no longer showing up on her Samsung phone. So I do have a Netgear Wi-Fi 6 router incoming. I have a Cambium Wi-Fi 6 AP that is in beta that's coming. Now, there's a big difference between Ubiquiti and the other companies. And I haven't heard if Grandstream's got one, but it wouldn't surprise me. You know, the big C word that's going on has got everything, all kinds of things screwed up for everybody. So who knows? I've got to, you know, spend some time and catch up with my media contact over there. But especially since we have deployed and managed somewhere in the tune of 3,000 handsets since the beginning of the year. So it has been a very good year for us. And I've got 200 handsets sitting here that I've got to get ready over the next week. So, but anyway, I've got, so with Ubiquiti, they have an access point that's Wi-Fi 6 that's in EA, and I can't talk about it. The only thing I can tell you is it's in EA, and we can't talk about it. The other companies want me to talk about it. So it's a very different view on that. Now, somebody did ping me last night and said that the UniFi Access stuff was out of EA. And I don't know if that's true, and because I'm not seeing it. So if we go, I'm not logged in my account, so I'm not seeing any of the EA stuff here. But I don't see anything there. It'll be under accessories. I don't see it here. So let me just go to accessories. And I don't see it here. So here's the smart plug. So I'm not seeing if it's not on the store, excuse me, any longer. Let me switch back over and let me log in and see, because they said it is no longer in the EA store. So what does that mean? Does that mean they killed the product? Does that mean it's coming out for release? I don't know. Let me see. Google wants me to select chimneys. By the way, we are all making the AI smarter. And oops, can't go to that one. But let's see. Now it looks like access is still EA, so we can't talk about it. Can't talk about it. So yeah, but I don't see anything there. So all right, so now the reason that everybody's here is probably the UniFi Doorbell, right? Is that why everybody joined this morning? They saw the UniFi Doorbell. So it is sold out. And if you, take a look, they everybody that I have seen install this is pretty happy with it, right? So I've got the device right here. And if you follow me on other forms of social media, you'll know that I've been messing with this for a couple days. and that I've been doing different things with it. So here's the device, and you're going, oh my God, there's an Ethernet cord. Yeah, it is, but what I did was I actually stole the passive PoE, and I'm powering this with passive PoE. Okay, so first of all, let's get this out there, right? Why, in my mind, did Ubiquiti not provide this with PoE? Because the target audience for this is not us networking nerds. Okay, it's just not. If we think it is, we think way too much of ourselves, because Ubiquiti is a big corporation and their number one goal is to make profits for the shareholders. That's the number one goal of any business, to make money for the shareholders. And by targeting a very small fraction of their demographic is not going to be good for them. It's going to cost them way more money. So when they play to the lowest common denominator, that is going to be people who have a wired doorbell already, which I do not have a wired doorbell. So for me, I had to find other ways to power this. So I actually took a power brick for an Edge Switch X, and I clipped it and it powered on. And I was super excited that it powered on. And then I started looking at the power requirements. And you know, it's 24 volt, 1 amp. If you look, there's an EA product that I can't talk about, but I studied that and made sure that my, you know, the power that I was giving it was inside the range that that official EA product is going to give it. So I felt really good about being able to power that with that Edge Switch X, you know, Edge Switch X power brick. And so I was, you know, I started looking at passive PoE, and I was like, you know what? I bet I can steal the passive PoE off of an Ethernet port, and I can power this thing. And I did that quick video the other day, and absolutely you can. There's the other end of the cable. Look, there's no magic tricks going on here. I'm not Chris Angel or David Blaine. I mean, that is a whole Ethernet cable, just in case you're wondering. And yes, it is screwed poorly onto the back of the device, but it does work. So I got a full video coming on this, and I'm answering this question from a different standpoint than like some of the other reviewers. Now, somebody pointed out on Instagram that there's this little plastic tab above the wires, and I was like, huh, okay. And they said that there's a USB connector under there. And I thought, huh, all right. It's no Horizon Tech Services. I don't need more coffee to wake up. I'm trying to look at the comments and I'm trying to talk at the same time. I just need to stop trying to multitask. So I said something to Tom Lawrence. I pinged Tom. I was like, hey, Tom, somebody said that there's a USB connector underneath there. And so he tore his off, and he showed me a picture, and he says, by golly, there is. And so I'm going to take mine off without cutting myself here while we're talking, and I'll show you that there is. And you know, everything that I've done to this, I'm sure that like my media contact over there is like, okay, warranty void on Willie's product. And there is a USB connector there. So it's possible we can power this thing with USB. There's also another curious plug in here that I haven't messed with. So there's this other, I'm not sure what is under that, but I think I want to tear it apart. Right? So let me just see if I can pop it out of there real quick. No, I'm not going to mess with it. I think there's some other electronics behind that, and it didn't look good. So I don't know if I've got a micro. Somebody tell me, is that a micro? That's a micro USB, right? That's what that is, micro USB. It's the thinner of the two. That's micro. But I mean, we could power this up. So I'm going to answer. My approach to this is going to be a little bit different. So first, when I do my video this week, next week, whatever, actually it'll be this week, because I'm actually going to pair this with an NVR that is not Ubiquiti. So I'm going to pair this with an NVR that is not Ubiquiti. So I see people like trying to like half-ass answer the question out there, but I'm just going to go ahead and make it work or not work, and then we'll know for sure. But You know, I'm coming at this from, okay, can I just buy this? Because like if you buy a Ring, or if you buy a Grandstream, or if you buy an Axis. Now, granted, Grandstream and Axis are double the price of this, but they're also have real warranties, real support. And I shouldn't say, I say that tongue in cheek, right? So this does have a 1-year warranty, except I probably voided mine. You know, so you get a 1-year warranty with this. When I say real, what I mean is like the Grandstream and the Axis are having like 3- and 5-year warranties. You've got phone support, you know, things like that. And those companies do not have a track record of creating a product and then end-of-lifing it very quickly. If it's outside of their core competency. In fact, you know, they will have things that don't get released to the public that don't even make it to public. Like you and I are not the beta, right? There's a beta, and if it's not going to be a viable product, it just dies. With Ubiquiti, you have to admit, we are all beta testers, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. But it'll be interesting to see how widely this is available. And what's funny is the picture that Tom sent me, like the exact same amount of this like foam stuff was stayed on his too, which is hilarious. So I am going to get this fired up, and so my video will be different. So we'll talk about, you know, some of the questions that I've seen out there. All right, let's go to the questions real quick. There's 80 of you on here, and let's look at some of the questions. All right. Let's see. Is there any way to have multiple UniFi doorbells using one controller for a home with apartments? So I have seen where they said you can't have multiple doorbells on the same controller. So I'm assuming that that's going to be a yes, but how do you do it with apartments? I don't know. That's interesting because the way that UniFi Protect works, which if you're running it on a CloudKey Gen 2, your UniFi on that can have multiple sites. But if you're running it on a UDM Pro, UniFi can only have one site. But regardless, Protect is only one site per controller, right? So there's a lot of logistics, and it may not be worth it. It may be worth it for you to find another product that is specifically meant for multi-dwelling units. So if you ever hear me use the acronym MDU, is that an acronym or an initialism? See, this is why we get so off base sometimes. But if you ever hear me say MDU, that means multi-dwelling unit. So hotels, apartment complexes, things like that. Ubiquiti isn't public, so shareholder return is probably, yes, Ubiquiti is a publicly traded company. I don't know who told you that Ubiquiti was not a publicly traded company, but they are 100% a publicly traded company. The owner, I think, owns, and somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I do believe that Robert owns 51% of the shares, though. EA means early access. Hey, Keith, glad you're here. Hey, Luke. Yeah, the video is coming on the doorbell. And yes, Ubiquiti is a publicly traded company. Why are you guys saying that Ubiquiti is not a publicly traded company? I don't understand where you're getting your information. Like, and unless I'm totally wrong and I like miss huge news that Ubiquiti Networks is no longer publicly traded, they are 100% publicly traded. There's their last stock price. They are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So I am not a stock. I am not a stock holder. I don't have any Ubiquiti stock. The only type of thing that I've got a huge time commitment as far as resources and stuff like that goes. So but yes, no, they are publicly traded. So if we look at, they have a market cap of $11.68 billion. They've got a pretty good PE ratio. So they're doing pretty good. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, they're doing well enough that they got a nice new jet, so that's awesome. You got a little jet envy going on. So Maybe I'll buy a jet when I hit 100,000 subscribers instead of a Tesla. I'm just kidding. I'm not buying a Tesla or a jet. All right. So, all right, let's see. Yeah, so none of the Ubiquiti cameras have Onvif support. It is in writing in the Ubiquiti community. And when they made this statement about UniFi Video a couple of years ago, like go back through the videos, we knew that UniFi Video was dying. And, you know, they made the announcement because if you remember some of the older cameras, they had SD card slots, right? Which meant, oh man, maybe we're going to get edge recording on these devices, right? So how does edge recording work in a modern setup? You have a camera and you have an NVR, and there's an SD card in the camera. And what happens is if the NVR goes away, the camera can record to that SD card, and then when the NVR comes back online, the camera transfers all of the footage that it recorded to the NVR. Edge recording, if you're using this for real security, that can be a real concern. There's a lot of other things. The Onvif support is huge. Onvif, like when you see the Synology video that's coming this week, you're going to see huge differences. Now, a lot of people didn't think it was fair of me to do Protect versus Synology. And most of those people are probably upset that they've sunk a lot of money into an infrastructure that can really only have all of the benefits realized when you stay within that infrastructure, right? We hate being wrong. That's just how it is. I hate being wrong. You hate being wrong. We all hate being wrong. But when you realize that if you take a UniFi camera and you only capture an RTSP stream from it, everything that you do is now limited. It's very limited. If you had Onvif support, it opens up, if the cameras had other functionality, which they don't. They don't have any PTZ. They don't have a lot of the features that other cameras have. You could then realize that, you know. And so we do a lot of AI-driven analytics with cameras where we're building fence lines, we're building areas where if you're loitering, you know, and you can't do video analytics with Protect. I would imagine that before the product ever gets there, it'll probably, who knows what's going to happen, but it's, you know, they sent me a UNVR, they sent me the doorbell. So the doorbell is definitely going to get used. It's definitely going to get hooked up. The UNVR, you're going to see that. You know, as well as anybody, you watching this, that when it comes to their routers and their switches and their access points, I'm in 100%. But some of these other areas that they're dabbling, it's just, there are other companies that are doing it better. And when you suggest things and you are ignored, or the community at large is ignored, I mean, you're alienating your base, your tribe that you built over all these years. So it'll be interesting to see the next year for them. But, you know, I lost an opportunity at a customer. The customer is and I thought I had the customer. It turns out I didn't have the customer, or maybe I do, and they just haven't called me back. But it is the company that is raising the presidential turkey. So if you're not from the United States, every year the President of the United States will pardon a turkey for Thanksgiving. And the company that has the turkey this year, they called me and they're like, you know, somebody said that you do Ubiquiti stuff and we want to use Protect, and we got to record 24/7 and I have to keep 20 weeks of video. And I said, you do not want to use Protect for that. And they were really, I think, bent on Protect. And so we talked about some other solutions and I never heard anything back. So I have to assume at this point that I did lose them. But that's okay. That's okay, because I would rather lose a customer knowing that I was going to put in a solution that would work versus trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. I have learned through the consulting and just through life when to start recognizing things that are going to cause me issues, and I've started trying to really mitigate those in my life, because it's just, I don't have time for messes and things like that. We don't. Our time here is very limited, and drama and all these other messes, it's just not worth it. So I've started to really recognize, when those things are starting to pop up. I'm not saying that I don't have some customers that I should have recognized that earlier, because I totally do. But I mean, we're working through it, and you know, we'll see what happens. So Scott, while I do like political rhetoric, I don't like it on my channel. So we will just not put any more. We will not put any more political stuff in the chat, please. So. Let's see. Yeah, so Blue Iris. Somebody asked me if I could do a Blue Iris video. So I do have a customer, and Tim actually worked with him a little bit, but he's got a Synology router coming in, so he can do OpenVPN, and then he's got a Blue Iris PC behind that, and he's got like 6 or 8 cameras. And you know, we used to use Blue Iris a lot, you know, and I think I can do 64 cameras. I'm probably going to do a little bit of a review on Blue Iris, just because it is a viable product, but I would never use it for business. Like, I think it's okay. I think it's better than Protect for home users. And the reason that I think it's better for Protect for home. Now, okay, so let's go back, because people are going to get on the hate bandwagon here because I said that. But if you look at who Ubiquiti is targeting with Protect, it is homes and maybe a small business, maybe like a 10-seat cafe, right? And I actually have, you know what? Here we go. I actually asked my Ubiquiti marketing person, and so let me get into my email, and I'm going to get you the official answer. My marketing contact over there, he's pretty good about being pretty truthful with me here. So here we go. He said. This was on the 4th of July, was that one. Here's a check-in here. So he told me that he shipped me the G4 doorbell. So I said, thanks, man. Is there going to be a PoE to doorbell adapter? Also, I've started going through Protect on the UDM, and then I'm going to do the 2 other devices. I said, what's the target audience on Protect in general? Home/small business. And I told him, send any other gear you want. He says there isn't a PoE adapter in the near future that he's aware of, but things can always change. And even if there was and it was in EA, you're not allowed to talk about it. I said, that's great. And this is what they said. This is specifically, so I'm asking questions about, you know, the doorbells. And this is specifically what he said. We wanted installs to be as simple as possible using the existing doorbell setups to appeal to most homeowners that wouldn't have to wire Ethernet to their doorbell. So that makes 110%, if you can have 110%. He said, thanks for the update. He'd say current offerings, I would say home, small to medium business. So that was his official answer. Current offerings, and I am going to take the liberty of saying I would not put it in a medium business. I just wouldn't. You know, and because it really depends on what your definition of a medium business is. But I mean, you know, any businesses, and I don't know if my buddy Roger is on here. Real quick, let me answer this. Freebs. If you go to my site, down at the bottom, there's a link to tbear.com. Click that and go over to Tim's site. Tim works with me, and fill out the contact form. And Tim is a programmer. He's also a web developer, and he can help you out there. So, okay. So Beer Diary Shootin' asks, why would someone use Protect when you can use a basic PC to run controller and UniFi video? I've always wondered this. That's because at the end of this year, at the beginning of 2021, UniFi Video is not going to get any more updates at all. And right now, the update that it is receiving is beta. So, I mean, they've made it pretty loud and clear, move away from the product because we are not supporting it. But here's an example. So I've been working with my friend Roger, and they've got like 40 sites. And so Could you imagine trying to manage 40 different Protect systems? It doesn't make any sense, right? So what we do is we put in a large rack station at the head end. We use Synology Surveillance Station CMS, which you're going to see a video on this coming week. And we manage every other NVR from one NVR. You can see all the cameras across all the locations from one place. And it uses a system where you have the centralized management server, and then out at the edge is what we call recording servers. The really nice thing, oh, and here we go. People are going to start bitching about this too, right? Well, you got to pay $50 for a Synology license. Okay, that's cool. Let's talk about this, right? Let me pull up a couple things real quick, and I'm going to give you some perspective, or my perspective on this. I'm going to look up a camera that we've been using. And I'm going to pull up the Ubiquiti Protect stuff here. All right. So, yes, you are going to pay for a license. I'm not even going to pretend that you're not. Now, with every Synology, you do get 2 licenses. Hey, Unky Joe, good being here. Thanks, man. We need to catch up about that other email I sent you. So let's talk about this, right? So I'm going to go to even just this G4 bullet camera, which is not EA. All right. So the price on this camera is $199.99. $199.99. It's a 4 megapixel camera, 24 frames per second, indoor, outdoor, gigabit Ethernet, ball joint, blah, blah, blah. Waterproof, built-in microphone, powered by PoE, managed by UniFi Protect software. I hop over here to Amcrest. Amcrest 5 megapixel Ultra HD outdoor security IP turret PoE camera with mic audio, 5 megapixel 98 feet night vision, 2.8 millimeter lens, IP67 weatherproof, micro SD recording up to 256 gig, $59.99. $199. So guess what? Is this hardware worth $199? No, not a shot that this is worth $199. But what Ubiquiti did was they had to have that higher price because they're not charging you for the license. I spend $110. I get this camera versus this camera, or even, okay, it's a turret camera, right? So let's look for even something else, okay? So here is a 4K camera with 131 foot night vision, micro SD, $94.99. So you get this camera versus this camera, and I can use this camera on any NVR I want except for the proprietary ones like UniFi Protect. So don't fool yourself into thinking that Protect is actually cheaper, because Protect is not actually cheaper. You're buying a lower end camera for a higher price because they have to offset the cost of that. Right? So, like, yeah, it's not, Protect is not any cheaper. It's really not, especially when you start scaling. It is definitely not cheaper when you start scaling. I mean, how many of you on the live stream, how many of you consider your time to be free? Comment in there if your time is free. Is your time not valuable? So, So the hookup, which I'm glad you're here. I have been meaning to reach out. Thanks for joining us. He's got some excellent videos, and he does give me a little shout out in his videos. He's got a home automation stuff. I want to talk to you. I've run into a couple customers, couple clients that have come to me, sir, talking about this NOT network. So you and I'd like to have a conversation offline and talk about that concept. But he says that there's a spoof that allows you to join RTSP cameras into Protect, and that's fine, right? But I mean, why do I want to use a spoof, right? Why do I want to use a hack? If I'm looking, for me, that's fine. For you, that's fine. But for the average user that just needs to get cameras going, it doesn't make any sense to do those workarounds or those spoofs, right? So here's the other thing is somebody says it's easier, right? If you've ever used Surveillance Station with actual supported or with actual, so you cannot put Ubiquiti in this. So Ubiquiti is supported through an RTSP stream. But if you have a camera that supports Onvif and you have them on your network, there's a search button. You're going to see all this when I do the video, which I've got to start filming it here tonight or tomorrow night. You're going to see it. If you have Onvif compatible cameras and they're on the network and you hit search, Synology Surveillance Station finds the cameras and you can just adopt them in the same way. It's not any more difficult, right? Ubiquiti's got better marketing, right? Because they built this tribe and everybody's out there advocating. Well, maybe it's time for us to advocate, you know, for something else, you know, and that's what I'm doing. I'm advocating for solutions for different fits. Protect works great for some home users. It doesn't work good for everybody, you know, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, people, I think, thought that I was saying that Protect was not a good product. I'm not saying Protect's not a good product. I'm saying it's not a good fit for all scenarios. So stop trying to shove square pegs in round holes. It doesn't work. You should I don't, for the life of me, I can't figure out why people want to do these hacky workarounds. And, you know, for like, I had a client who will remain nameless, who was like, hey, I'm going to load Xpenology on all these PCs I pulled out. And I said, that is a horrible idea. First of all, I'm a reseller, so don't ever tell me that. Blah, 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 blah. Second of all, I am a brand representative of Synology, so don't tell me that. Blah, 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 blah. Second of all, you're going to put a piece of software out there that it's a hack to get DSM running on. I mean, why? And then, you know, and he's actually a Synology reseller now, so it works out pretty well. But, so I have, speaking of Qnap, I see Qnap come up quite a bit. Qnap wants to take me out for dinner, take me to a movie. I have a Qnap NAS they sent me. The switch, I've been sending some kind of like bug fixes that I'd like to see, you know, out there. I've sent that over. So waiting to hear back on some of that. But in the meantime, they've sent me a 2-bay NAS. They also sent me a card for the NAS to do 10 gig networking. So we're gonna have fun with that. We're gonna put that through its paces. So I also have a TerraMaster NAS that they sent me, and I need to hook it up. We need to do a side by side. The hookup, which, by the way, you'll have to email me because I feel horrible for not realizing your name from watching your videos, your actual name. But so forgive me for that. He asked, have you messed around with the Synology router? Yeah, if you check out my channel, I've got several videos on the Synology router, and we recommend that router a lot. It's got some really cool things built into it. It's got reverse proxy built into it. It's got remote desktop application built into it. So it's got a lot of really cool things that we are using for SMBs. And I don't know if you've only got 2 days left or how many days that you've got left, but Synology was giving away all the licensing you can eat. Synology VPN licensing. And I did a video on that. They were giving them away, I think, until it might be the end of August or maybe the end of September. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see here. Synology free VPN. Oh, that's hilarious. So when I search for it, my video comes up. And I don't know if any of the other views who are content creators, like when you know that you know how to do something and you're like, oh, I just need to Google this one, and then your video comes up. It's like, come on. What are you doing, YouTube? You're killing me. So yeah, so until September 30th, 2020, you can get all the VPN licensing on the Synology router, so you can max that baby out. So I recommend doing that. If you check out my Amazon store, you'll see that in there. You don't have to use my link. It is appreciated when you do it, when you do use it. But yeah, they are allowing you to max out for free all of this, and the VPN options on this router are awesome. I keep pushing them, telling them we need VLANs, VLAN routing, VLANs on this on the inside. I heard a rumor that it's coming, but I haven't seen anything official. So let's see here. What else we got going on in the comments? Yeah, so Synology is fantastic. So if you want to, let's talk about that a little bit. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, DS120J. I did a video on this, and we gave a couple of these away. The Synology DS120J, and we gave some of these away. This is a single disc Synology. It will run Surveillance Station, and it comes with 2 free camera licenses, right? So for 99 bucks, and then you got to throw a hard drive in it, right? But if you're just messing around, check this out. 256 gig SSD, right? So if you just want to throw in like a 480 gig SSD or a 256 gig SSD, so now you've got an NVR for 2 cameras for like 125 bucks. Synology is overpriced too. Okay, that's your opinion, Oliver, but you know, I mean, we get a lot of value for what we pay out of Synology. And their support, they actually have a phone number now where you can pick up the phone and call Synology support and get phone support. It's fantastic. It's a North American number. Their support has come a long way, so they were kind of in that same vein as some of these other companies where they didn't have stellar support in the beginning, but you know, it's changed. It's totally changed. Their support is much, much better. Somebody says if you want free licenses with Synology, use Xpenology, and that is a horrible idea. It's cool to tinker around with, but it's nothing that I would ever put in production, and I can tell you as a reseller and everything, you know, I can never recommend that. Richard, I don't necessarily have an opinion of the Netgear GS752 PTV2 PoE switch yet. So a Synology, basic Synology license. So Justin, to answer your question, like what does a surveillance station license cost? That's face value, retail, one license, I think is like, let's see, let's flip back over to the web here. Okay. So this is MSRP. It says $65.99, but Amazon is selling it for $56.12. So let me explain to you a little bit about the licensing. So I can secure special price licensing for you, and we are cheaper as far as that goes than anybody. Now I'm switching distributors because I'm very not happy with my current distributor. In the fact that I've had shipments lost, I've just had logistical nightmares, and so I'm switching to another distributor. But for example, if I sell you a 1-pack, because of the way my distributor works, I have to charge you $5 on top of my cost because they're going to charge me that. And then they're going to charge $10 for shipping. So it's an additional $15, right? So they do have a free shipping threshold, but we did work out a deal like anything more than 4 licenses gets shipped for free, no handling. But this other distributor has said that even on a single, I mean, these things are literally like cardboard packages, right? So they're going to do free shipping on any order, the new distributor is. So I am hopping on that ASAP. But let's take a look here at the comments. Yeah, Horizon Tech Services says they've been using Synology for over 10 years, and the support you get from them is pretty good. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's pretty decent. 1618 is a great unit. Somebody asked, has the firmware on the UDM Pro improved? It scares me. It scares a lot of people. Since the beginning of March, we've pulled more UDM Pros out of service because of problems with VPN than what we put in. Yeah, Synology is not overpriced at all for what you get. So Matthew asks, if I use a single disc Synology, can I plug in an external drive to the USB port and use it to mirror? Yes, you can use that USB port to back up everything on the single disk to another disk. That is absolutely possible. So, Hey, Keith, just do a Google search for Willie, Howe, Synology free VPN licensing, and it'll come right up for you. Yeah, the Synology. So, you know, Qnap is, you know, they're trying to court me, you know, trying to see what's going on. But I'm really glad y'all joined us here this morning. I need to get to it. We've got some things we got to do. We got to mow, finish staining a deck. Son's having a birthday party, all that good stuff. So we're going to get out of here. And once again, everybody stay safe, stay cool. I appreciate you being here. And as always, I will see you in the next video.